Welcome to the Purpose Focused Advisor. This show is for financial advisors who want to grow their business with clarity, lead with purpose, and build a life that reflects what matters most.
Welcome back. Time once again for the Purpose Focused Advisor, my favorite time of the week. And my guest today is Morgan Nichols. Morgan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
So I am excited to talk with Morgan because she has a unique story as an advisor with a Ameriprise in Dallas. She is also the child of financial advisors, which I think gives her a real legacy in the industry. And she's written a new book titled Intentional Legacy. So it just all kind of fits together. So tell me, Morgan, what was it like growing up with parents who did what you, or maybe still do, what you now do, and how did that influence you in getting into the industry?
Rob, I think I was destined to become a financial advisor. I like to joke that it was around the age of 8 that my parents started giving me odd and end tasks that I could do around their office after finishing my homework. But I knew pretty quickly, I was able to see a lot, go to conferences growing up, but I didn't want to start right in the family practice. I really wanted to go get some big city experience. I moved to Boston, worked for a large corporation. It was such a great training ground. I learned so much. I would highly recommend it. But pretty quickly realized I missed working with people. I wanted to work with individuals and families and feel like I was having a direct impact in people's lives. So I ended up, the good part was I saw a lot of practices while I was in corporate finance. And so when I had the opportunity to join a team, felt really good about the team that I was joining. And now it's been over 10 years. I'm leading the team. Leading the team as the CEO, also working with high net worth clients and growing the amount of clients we serve, as well as the number of advisors on our team. And it's a lot of fun.
So you were destined to be an advisor.
Yes. I'm the firstborn, so apple did not fall far from the tree.
Yeah, well, that's great. Because I run into advisors all the time who say, wouldn't it be great if my daughter got into the business? And rarely does it happen. And then oftentimes when it does happen, it doesn't work out because it wasn't planned for in the right way. So it's cool to hear about your success, but also that success of being a second generation advisor in your family. So that leads me to want to talk about your book. You wrote with your co-author Kelly Bays, Intentional Legacy: Aligning Wealth and Values Across Generations. What is it about legacy that was so important for you to want to write about that now?
I think when people are thinking about legacy, a lot of times they think end of life, estate planning, wills. But what we really wanted to communicate was that the legacy you leave it's all the decisions you make along the way. Decisions, I'm leaving a legacy now here in my 30s with how I'm planning things for the future, how I show up in relationship with my daughter and my family. So we wanted to, when Kelly joined Life Branch Wealth Partners, and we sat there and we said, well, let's not make this partnership be by accident. Let's intentionally share, how do we work with our clients? How do we help those? How can we create a guide that the younger advisors in our team or someone interested in joining our practice knows how we work with clients? But also I think we found a lot of people out there don't fully understand what advisors do or what real financial planning is all about. And we wanted to create a little bit more awareness around that and help them understand how the cumulative decisions are all part of that legacy process.
So do you find that misunderstanding of legacy is even a misunderstanding that sometimes happens among financial advisors, among other financial professionals?
I think it can, absolutely. I think it's been interesting as we're doing planning. I don't think all advisors out there do the comprehensive planning to the same level that we do. And so when you really start digging in, you see, what are the strategies? So many people will focus on what's the tax strategy for 2025. But are we looking at, what's it going to be when we're 80, or what's it going to be with these dollars, when they're inherited? It's decisions more than just what happens at the end of life.
Yeah, I'm glad that you stopped to clarify that point. And I was looking away at my cell phone, not to be distracted by a text, but I found this quote yesterday that I want to read, and I think it really speaks to what you're talking about, what legacy is really all about. This quote's from Henry Drummond, and it's, "Every man has influence, or every woman has influence. Mm-hmm. He cannot touch a hand or speak a word without leaving a trace of himself."
Very much. It's all along the way.
Yeah.
It's what are you going to be remembered for? It's not just the dollars and cents.
Yeah. In your book, there's a call out where you say that legacy isn't just where your money goes, but it's the values you want to leave behind. Mm-hmm. For some financial advisors, that can be a really tough conversation to have with a client.
It can be. I think I get a lot of joy. I have a household I'm working with 4 generations of the household, which is really, really neat. Everyone has a little bit different planning needs. But I also find just creating understanding, helping to understand, what do you want your children, what do you want that next generation to take away from what's most important to you, and how can you build along the way?
So, and those are great questions, and sometimes they can be really difficult for clients to answer, especially if they weren't expecting them. How do you build that kind of questioning into your planning process so that you can kind of take the time to make sure that you're not just asking the question, you're getting a really thorough response, so you truly understand what those values are?
It's another good question. So on twofold. So how do we find the values? We work with our clients on an exercise that walks them through, here's all the values that are out there. How do we refine them down? Usually people can get it down to the top 10, but getting to that final 5, it's really hard, because it's not a right or wrong. It's not a bad thing if one of the values you think are important don't make it in your top 5, but it's being really authentic to what's most important to you. Because I find I can give good advice, or what I believe is good advice, all day long, but if it's not authentic to what's most important to the client I'm working with, then there might be a bit of a gap. I also find through the robust planning we do, it's our job as advisors is always to step back and look holistically at the situation, look at the phase of life that our clients are in, and present them with options. For example, I was working with a client just this week where I know charitable giving is important, and when she can really understand what does her future look like, what are the assets we expect to be left at the end, and dig deep and say, do you really want to leave that legacy at the end of your life, or are there steps along the way? Are there gifting along the way? Because it's not going to derail you, and helping them make those choices that are meaningful to them.
And you described client that you have where it's fun because you're working with four generations.
Four generations, yes.
Yeah. So that conversation around values and legacy must be really rich, because with four generations you have, people of very different ages, even if they're in the same family, that may think very differently about wealth and money, and when to use it and when not to use it, when to give it away.
Yes. So you think about it, each generation has gone through different experiences that have shaped them and different priorities. So it's not that we want all of the generations to think or operate exactly the same way, but if we can create certain levels of understanding of what's important to each generation, at the same time, we do respect privacy in each of those relationships. But working with multiple generations was an initiative we really leaned into probably about 8 to 10 years ago. And it's been really fun to watch how over time we're working with families, extended families, and being able to make a difference in those relationships.
That's another one of those topics sometimes that you speak with advisors about, and they say they would really like to do that, and they expect that intergenerational work just to happen because they're working with the older generation, and it's naturally going to flow. The future generation will naturally come to them because they work with mom and dad, but it doesn't happen that way. You have to be intentional about it. So what did you do, and what did your team do to be intentional about building that process that encourages intergenerational relationships?
So I always say I want our clients' children to know us before they need us, because at the time they need us, that if that relationship isn't there, it's not ideal. They don't need to become our clients right away, but it's also being available for those 30-minute ask anything calls, as they're working through workplace benefits or whatever it may be. I've also had many of our clients read our book and say, can I get an extra copy to give my child? Because many of my clients who've read our book say, this is great and you've been working with me on this, but I wish I would have done some of these things 20 or 30 years earlier.
Sure.
So again, just being able to find those means to connect with them, to bring them into events. And I think one of the things clients worry about too is that if we meet with their children, do we have to expose everything about their financial details? And the reality is no. Just being able to share with the next generation, this is how we work with your parents, and share as much or as little as the parents are comfortable with, is a really great starting point. And a lot of times what we see is when we start sharing what we do, the children realize, wow, I really want to have that type of relationship, or there's more to this than I may have initially realized.
Yeah, I would imagine that in some cases, the thought is, well, if my parents are working with that person, that must be old-fashioned or out of date, or it's what's that old commercial about? It's not your grandfather's Buick anymore, and you're really, what you're saying is, hey, no, it's actually the way that we work is something that changes and grows over time to fit the family and the situation and the generation. So you never have to feel like you're getting old, stale advice.
Well, and I think one thing a client once told me, it's been a client for many years, but it surprised me at first. And then I thought about it. They said, you want to have a young doctor and a young financial advisor. And I was like, well, why is that? They're like, because we want them to be with us through the rest of our lives. So, it's been interesting because I am a little younger than some advisors out there. We hope we can have advisors of all ages across our team that can really relate with whatever age demographic that we're working with.
Yeah, that's great. In the book, there's another call out that you wrote. The goal of financial planning isn't just to make you rich; it's help you to create a life that's rich in the ways that matter most to you. And we've touched on this a little bit already in talking about values. But how do you connect that idea of financial planning both across your team, so that they understand why you're doing this planning isn't just about, making rich people richer, but also to the client, to, if you're working, you say you work with a lot of higher net worth clients, how you help them understand that financial planning isn't just about the money.
I think so. It's been interesting for my team, and I'm really encouraged. I have many advisors on my team that already have or have worked on the behavioral financial advice. I think where the industry is going, the reality is there's a lot of AI out there, but the coaching and the consulting is going to continue to be key. And when it comes to digging in on that value side with the conversation, I think of a client, so the ways that are most meaningful or the ways that are rich for you. I have a client who one of their top values is flexibility. So diving in and saying, well, what does that mean to them? If they're just trying to build the value of their account, but they're locked in working 70 hours a week, it's not really in alignment with what they care about most. So it's finding a way that it works that can be meaningful. I also find a lot of our habits and a lot of our values are based on what we learned about money growing up. And so really being able to have authentic conversations and learn how our clients view money and how that's been influenced, and guiding our strategies to take that into consideration.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a step in a different direction. Tell me about your team. How big is your team? How many advisors are on there, and why is it structured the way that it is?
So our team, we actually have offices in 3 different states. So here in Texas, Illinois, and Virginia. We serve clients in almost 40 different states. So I like to say we were doing virtual meetings before COVID even, brought that to life. We were already operational in that way. Right now, we have 17 people on our team. I can't believe we keep growing, but it's with the right people in mind. We have a total of 8 advisors. I would say 4 senior advisors and 4 support advisors that are continuing to grow their skill set.
And is the size of the firm and the way that you're bringing these advisors together?
I lost your sound, Rob.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
All right. Can you hear me, Rob?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Did it just cut out?
I don't know what happened. Something switched on my end, but I'm glad we're back.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to make a note to the production team that at about the 18-minute mark, there was a gap in the sound and the recording, and so they'll hear this and work it out. So it won't be a big deal. So you had just finished telling me about the size of your team, the 8 with 8 advisors, 4 more senior, 4 more junior. So I want to keep going down that road. So I'm just going to pause for a second and give the production team a little bit of silence to make it easier to clip this, and we'll get started back up.
Okay.
Well, Morgan, 17 people. That's a big team by most standards, and spread across 3 states. What got you started in that direction of being in all of these different places and growing such a large team? As you said, you're younger in the industry than maybe, I'm sure well younger than the average age of advisors in this industry. You got a real head start on building something big and significant.
Well, Rob, I even have a note on my desktop here because I am about being intentional. And I have the question, it's why do I want to grow? I think that's something I have to reflect on consistently. But just having that passion to serve families and be able to grow our presence to make a lasting difference is something that I really enjoy. I like the process of growing. I like the process of really building a team. And so we've chosen to lean into that. The practice I joined, we were already in 2 states. That was just a bit of a natural evolution. And then when Kelly joined our team in 2024, she was already in Chicago. So again, we said, I think we can do more together than just operating individually. And I'm always willing to grow with advisors that share our passion, our values, and are interested in what we're doing.
So it sounds to me that intentionality that you talk about isn't just growth for growth's sake. You see the sacredness, the importance of the work that you do, and by growing, you're able to share those values, that expertise with a lot of other people because you have a bigger team to be able to serve more people.
I think to do this job really well, any single advisor can only work with so many households and have a deep level of relationship. So continuing to build that next generation of advisors that can be there to continue in this process. And also, there are advisors out there that are going to be retiring in the next 10 years. There's a lot of information out there about the trends in the industry, and we want to be positioned to continue to serve clients for generations to come.
Do you have a focus as far as the type of client that you enjoy working with the most?
So I like to nerd out on tax strategy. And I realize most clients day to day, they just want to know what they need to do. And I get all excited and they're just glad that I'm excited about it and can help them figure it out. So anything that deals with I'd also say looking at the overall estate planning side. I remind we're not attorneys, but we work closely with attorneys to make sure what is the strategy in place. I work with many clients that are in that $2 to $10 million of investment assets with me. And that's where I find we start being able to do many unique strategies that I really enjoy and I feel like I've been able to lean into from an expertise.
You know, I love that you said that because I've worked with advisors over the years where they've been very, and we keep using this word, intentional. I think it's one of my favorite words. But they're very intentional about working with larger clients because the larger clients create opportunities and challenges for them that a client with a lower net worth or a lower investable assets just don't have. And so creating that challenge, that opportunity to come into the work every day and be able to nerd out and get excited about a new tax strategy or some money save. I think that's really smart.
Well, I also, there's a saying, and I'll try to get it right, but it's having the mind of a capitalist and the heart of a social worker is a lot of what it means to be a financial advisor that truly cares about their clients. So, while that's the area I have expertise in, our team works off of one playbook. And we also make sure we have advisors that for clients that might not be at that threshold, but really want to set their families up for success and really be intentional, we're able to help serve them too.
So talk a little bit about the client experience that you deliver. How do you make sure that you're delivering on what you're promising in terms of communication and service and keeping up with their plans?
So we meet with most of our clients 2 to 3 times a year, but we're touching base in between. we're a very high touch client experience. And a lot of that just comes down to having really good systems and processes and a schedule on which we're covering different topics. But we really do believe in comprehensive planning. So I was meeting with a client just yesterday. A new client came in, wants to retire next year, but doesn't yet have the clarity. There's this fog of uncertainty about, okay, do I have enough? What does this look like? So we start with the process of getting the information we need and really working with them on a strategy session, very collaborative. And we work the planning process with several meetings that first year, and then really make sure we have that cadence of accountability to check in and make sure we're consistently focusing on what's most important that season.
So you talk about having a series of topics, sort of being ready to talk with each of your clients about different financial planning or life planning, I'm sure, issues so that they can see the breadth of what you're able to help with them with, but also to be able to consider some things for themselves that they might not have thought before. How do you deliver that outside of the client meetings, the 2 to 3 review meetings that you have each year?
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. So how are we bringing new ideas outside of the meetings?
Yes.
Okay. I think the meetings are a really great platform for us as far as the preparation we do for each meeting, to make sure that we have topics that we want to cover that are unique to that client. And then we're scheduling touches in between, because I also like to check in to see what's changing, what's going on as there's different life events, going through a company sale out or different shares that are vesting or whatever we need to be talking about. But we really do try to make sure in each of those meetings we're building on the foundation of prior discussions and making sure that we're bringing new thoughts to them in between.
Yeah, the way that you're describing what you do, it's like you want your relationship with a client to be like this never-ending email, this continuous thread of conversation where each piece attaches to the other, and it's not like you come in, in the middle of the year and you have one conversation, then you come in at the end of the year and it's a completely different, or maybe even a totally repetitive conversation.
Right. For example, I had a client I met with yesterday, and, in the start of the year, we were building out a lot of the strategy, financial planning, net worth, cash flow, where were we seeing this year going? Well, the middle of the year was a great time to touch base to say, okay, let's think about the tax strategies we might want to do towards the end of the year and make sure we're really understanding what has happened this year and what are the new things coming up. But later this year, we're still going to fine tune any last minute tax pieces, considering anything else that may happen between now and then. I think one of the things I find is people think we just focus on the finances, but we really wrap our arms around our client's whole situation and make sure we're touching base with them all year.
So we're getting ready to land the plane here, Morgan, and it dawns on me we haven't talked enough about your book yet. I'm curious. Is there a story or a specific lesson that you teach in the book that if you could only pick one that you would choose to talk about?
I think it's the realization that we really all only get one life to live. And so how do we make that as meaningful as possible? And how do we make sure that we're looking just at not just how finances are going to leave a legacy, but how the ways we choose to interact with our families and the ways that we can do things along the way just can bring peace of mind and really help us be able to look back and say, wow, I lived my life in alignment with my values, and that was worth it.
that is a very powerful thing to be able to think and look back on and say, wow, well done. I did it. I can see it. I can almost touch it when you're doing it the right way. So, which brings me back to kind of where we started. You mentioned that you have a daughter. Is she coming into to your office and helping you out? And is she going to become one of your next partners?
So my daughter is 2. And she's almost 3. So, when I think about intentionality, it's how do I get home at the end of the day and drop everything to be present with her? Because I'm not going to get these years back. But she does make me laugh because she sees me work at my computer. So she'll run up and she'll sit in front of my keyboard and be typing and look at me and say, working. And so it's that finding the balance of, what example are you setting for your children? What are they seeing? And how do you make sure you're showing up as your best self and reflecting on it?
Yeah, because that's just another one of those touches that's happening, and it's going to have influence and impact at some point, whether you see it or not. And maybe this is even at 2, almost 3, shaping her to be a financial advisor in 20 years.
I think it would be great, but I think she still has many years to go, and I hope she can play and live with a lot of fun and not feel like she has to be behind a computer anytime soon.
Well, I'm sure she won't be. Although I have 2 grandsons, 2 and 3, who love coming to the house and sitting at my
They think it's fun. It is fun to them at this age.
They think it's fun. Yeah. So you never know. They love playing with the microphone. So they might become podcasters. Who knows? But they've got some time to work that out. Mm-hmm. So Morgan, as we finish up here, is there anything that we should have talked about that you want to share that we didn't get around to?
I think we covered a lot of it, but what I would say is for anyone who's working with a financial advisor or interested in understanding more about their values, I really encourage people to have those conversations. Doing the values exercise with my husband was one of the most enlightening conversations I ever had. I learned so much more about him. I learned more about myself, and it's just being able to have that as a basis to say, with all the decisions I make along the way, is that in alignment? Or when I'm choosing between 2 things, okay, which one is most true to me? And if I can make decisions in that way, or if our clients can, they're going to feel better about their lives overall.
Yeah, and that's the case of just getting shared values and bringing those together. I was talking with an advisor who was telling me the story the other day of helping some clients move towards retirement, and they both said that what they wanted to do in retirement was travel, but they had never actually talked about what travel meant to each other. And it was 2 completely different kinds of travel. It was
believe it.
Not exactly, but it was like one was like more long weekends, and the other one was like months away from home at a time in a far off country, and they had to bridge that gap. So that's not a value, but it's just, I think, indicative of how having those conversations around values are just so important.
I will see family often listed as a top value. And so it's still saying, but how do you define it? Because for some people, family might mean being physically present. For someone else, family could mean, I never want my children to have to want for anything. So the same word can have multiple meanings, and it's great to really make sure we understand that.
Yeah, and I think that is why the work of financial advisors like you is so important, because there's nobody else that is going to help with those sorts of questions. Mm-hmm. And just being able to get in front of hundreds of people probably thousands of people that you're their team serves or will serve over time is touching a lot of lives that are then going to touch a lot of other lives. So there's a real ripple effect to what you're about.
They don't always expect us to be getting into values, right? They're thinking spreadsheets, and we're saying, let's look at everything.
Or they're saying, well, let's talk about values, and they're saying, well, what's the value of my account today? And you're like, no, different value altogether. That's awesome. Well, Morgan, it has been great to have you on the podcast. If somebody wants to get to know more about you and your team and your book, what's the best way to do that?
There's two great ways. So we do have a website specific to our book where you can request a copy. So it's intentionallegacybook.com. And then we also have our team website, which is lifebranchwealth.com.
Okay, well, that's great. And I'll be sure to put both of those links in the show notes. Well, Morgan, great to be with you today. Thank you for sharing your story and telling us about the importance of values. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. I enjoy the opportunity to do this with you.
And to our audience, as always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like our show so it gets listened to and seen by more and more people. And as always, we are rooting for your success. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Purpose Focused Advisor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a step you're ready to take, head over to truestfancoaching.com. There you'll find tools, resources, and ways we can work together to help you lead with purpose and build the business and life you were meant for. If you enjoyed the show, we'd be grateful if you take a moment to rate and review it. It helps more advisors find their way here.